The power of any Genestealer Cult unit varies depending on which detachment they're fielded in. This makes a tier list of good units very difficult to do now we're no longer in the Index and have the Codex and also an extra detachment called Final Day. Some of the detachments want shooting units like the Brood Brothers Auxilia. Others want combat units like the Xenocreed detachment. And some detachments say, hey, these are the units you want to take, like the Outlander Claw detachment and the Biosanctic Brood Surge. But there are some Genestealer Cult units that appear in almost all of my lists, assuming points are available. In smaller games I would have to pick between the units that get the detachment bonuses, useful point scoring units, and these units, assuming these 6 units don't already fit into one of those other groups. These are the 6 units I like to take. The first one is the Ridge Runner. You would be worried if I didn't mention the Ridge Runner. It is great for general use across all detachments for all of the Genestealer Cult units. Its crossfire rule lasts until the end of your turn, not until the end of the shooting phase. So getting an extra point of armor penetration will support your shooting attacks and your close combat attacks. A mortar does that very well. You don't need to have line of sight to convey the crossfire rule. A twin heavy stubber can also do it, and if you had a massive mining laser or the missiles, they could shoot at something else while the heavy stubber hits a target that other Genestealer Cult units are going to go for, and then the crossfire rule is applied to that target. The weapons and the special equipment you want to take will depend on the detachment. So I would take a mortar and a spotter in the Biosanctic Brood Surge. That is an army that wants to be very close to the enemy right away, and the Ridge Runner doesn't want to be close. It wants to be providing that mortar strike from a distance, and the spotter gives you +1 ballistic skill, which will counteract the -1 to hit that you get from firing indirectly. In Ascension Day, I have the mining laser and the spotter. You can come on from strategic reserves, and then you get sustained hits. In the Final Day detachment, if you're targeting an enemy unit that is near one of your Tyrannid units, you get +1 to hit, which stacks with the improved ballistic skill of a spotter, meaning that your big mining laser can hit on a 2+. Or you can be happy hitting on a 3+ and have a flare launcher instead. Then you stay alive for longer. In the Outlander Claw, you take almost any combination of weapons and bonuses. Their job is to sit on objectives with their improved objective control and shoot at the things you want to convey crossfire to. But sitting on an objective is something you can do in any of the detachments. They are surprisingly cheap, and with a tank profile, even if it's a very weak tank profile, they are just inconvenient enough to get rid of for your enemy to overcommit. I like Big Hammer Lady, the Abominant. They have gone up to 95 points, which is still okay. They can operate alone, they have deep strike, so they can pop up and complete secondary missions, or they can come in swinging with a big hammer. I don't call them Big Hammer Lady for no reason. They have a tough profile for an infantry model, toughness 6, 5+ feel no pain, and then they can get back up, probably if they're taken down at the end of any phase, and then they get out of engagement range. So an enemy will have to shoot you, and then also charge you, and be able to take you down twice over in order to get rid of this one model. You can use Aberrants as an expensive delivery unit in the Biosanctic Brood Surge. The Abominant and their Aberrant unit are -1 to be wounded because of the Aberrant rule. But I don't usually take Aberrants outside of the Biosanctic Brood Surge, not at their current points and their limited attack power compared to the Index. But in the Biosanctic Brood Surge, you get a lot more damage from the Abominant and their unit, even without those bonuses to charge and an extra attack. You swing the hammer with the power of 4 las cannons hitting on a 3+. What it really wants is 1 more point of armor penetration, and the Ridge Runner can give you that, but unless there are Aberrants there as well, the Ridge Runner is needed to help other units in almost every detachment. The Primus is a wonderful leader. It is unusual to have 2 abilities, even more unusually, they're both great. After deployment is over, you can redeploy up to 3 of your units. You won't know who is going first at this time, but if there's an obvious mistake, like you have a unit of pure strains in front of flamers, that is bad. You can redeploy them, and if they're infiltrating, they can redeploy using the infiltrators rule. Or you can do a fake deployment. Put units in an area knowing that the Primus is going to take them off the board and put them somewhere else, or put them in reserves. It means you find out more information about where the enemy is deploying, and you will be able to put your units to counter them. It's entirely possible, and potentially very strong in the Host of Ascension, to start with no units on the board. In the Pariah Nexus mission deck, up to half of your army can start in reserves. If the other half of your army is 3 units, the Primus can take them off the board and then you start with nothing. This is great. Then you get all of the Host of Ascension bonuses like sustained hits when you arrive. The Primus's second ability is full reroll to hit for whatever unit they're joining. That works in shooting, that works in combat. So you can join a massive squad of neophytes or a large squad of acolytes or metamorphs, and they will do so much more damage. In the Outlander Claw, they could jump out of a truck with 10 metamorphs. In the Biosanctuary Broodsurge, they could double up with the Biophagus in a squad of acolytes, and then they get the detachment bonus. They could be with a large number of neophytes in the Host of Ascension. They could be with acolytes or metamorphs in the Xenocreed Congregation and advance and charge into combat. Whatever detachment you're using, the Primus is a great force multiplier and shenanigan user. I don't think that it's a Genestealer Cult detachment if we don't have pure strains, the Genestealers of the Genestealer Cult. They can infiltrate, they can start completing missions right away. They can annoy the enemy by being in the way, they can get rid of screens really well as they have many attacks and hit on a 2+ with good armor penetration. If you're thinking of a good unit to use resurgence points on, pure strains like to come back through Cult Ambush. When they come back through a Cult Ambush marker, you're gonna be quite far away from the enemy. With their 8-inch move and the ability to advance and charge, the pure strains can get back into the fight right away. With a Patriarch that gives them devastating wounds, they can do a lot of damage early on, especially in the Biosanctuary Broodsurge or Final Day with a stratagem to reroll wound rolls. Outside of those detachments, the squad can get sustained hits from reserves, rapid ingress, or Cult Ambush in the Host of Ascension. When completing missions, a comparison is all of the lone operatives we have, like the Kellamorph and the Reductor Saboteur. 5 pure strains is harder to remove than a lone operative for only a few points more. It's 10 wounds with an invulnerable save. Yeah, you can't shoot lone operatives if you're more than 12 inches away from them, but you can't shoot pure strains if there is a wall in the way. So make sure there is a wall in the way. What about indirect fire, you asked? Well, one of you did. Otherwise, I wouldn't answer. But they get more and more expensive every time there's a points update. Pure strains don't. Pure strains are cool. Pure strains are the origin of the Genestealer Cult. They have a really long tongue, which I'm told is a very good thing to have. You don't see basilisks with long tongues, at least not outside of the Eye of Terror, and you can't usually get in there, because the parking is really bad. A Sanctus is a lone operative I like to take. They get a special rule that matches their weapon. If you have a sniper, you can reactive move. If you have a knife, you can't be hurt by Overwatch. I kit them out to match the detachment. So in the Brood Brothers Auxilia and the Host of Ascension, I take a sniper rifle. But usually, I take a knife. Anti-infantry 3+. One enemy unit you pick at the start of the game, you get to reroll all hit rolls and wound rolls against them, so you have actually reliable precision, which is rare. You get to stab the enemy. Removing a character can do a lot of damage to an enemy unit. It might be a character that gives them the bonus from a detachment, like the Biophagus does in the Biosanctuary Broodsurge. In the Awakened Dynasty of the Necrons, having a character in the unit gives them +1 to hit. You can remove that. And the Sanctus is the cheapest lone operative character, so if you need someone to sit on an objective and complete secondary missions like Cleanse, they can't be shot outside of 12 inches, and this is the cheapest model to do it. A lone operative won't stand up to being attacked. They die very easily. 10 neophytes is a better choice. 20 neophytes is a damage dealer in the Host of Ascension, but 10 neophytes is my best objective holder. You can deep strike onto an objective, you could deep strike into the enemy backline if there's space, and you can complete secondary missions there. They have sticky objectives, so that objective is yours if you control it at the start of the command phase, and it will remain yours until the enemy commits a unit to not so much take an objective from you, just stand in a place. You haven't lost any units in the process, and those neophytes will have moved on to the next objective to make it sticky. If the unit is not wiped out in one go, lots of them come back. D3 +3 when you're standing on an objective, and that's where they want to be standing. They have pistols, all of them. You can get a couple of kills against toughness 3 enemies if you end up in combat with them. They have good guns for just 10 cultists. 2 special weapons, 2 heavy weapons. Compare that to Cadians and Deathcore of Krieg. They don't get the heavy weapons. We get the heavy weapons. Pending whatever happens to the Deathcore of Krieg in the new Imperial Guard Codex. The neophytes are a great choice to be transported by a truck, even if that truck has maybe transported metamorphs, the metamorphs have got out to go off and charge, the neophytes can get into the truck, be transported to the next objective, and all of their good guns can shoot from the firing deck. Those are the 6 units I want to take in every army list in every detachment. But there is another, an honourable mention. The Acolytes with Hand Flamers. They're often a popular choice, so why are they not in my top 6? The demo charges are nothing like in the Index, which is surprising for a lot of people who haven't played against Genestealer Cult in the last 8 months. Hand Flamers with a potential full reroll to wound is okay when you are attacking an enemy on an objective, but they're still strength 3 with no armor penetration unless you're dedicating a Ridge Runner to it, and a small squad of 5 is not going to warrant a Ridge Runner support. So the Hand Flamers will only upset some units in some armies. I prefer combat acolytes with mining weapons. A flat damage 3 is much more reliable. If I want hand flamers, I will take metamorphs with hand flamers. Disembarking from a Goliath truck and having it support you gives you the same full reroll to wound without having to target an enemy on an objective. And if I'm taking metamorphs, I often prefer auto pistols to get the longer range surge move. I know the argument is good opponents will stay 7.1 inches away. So put them in situations where they can't, around an objective, or hug a wall so line of sight is really hard to get without being really close. This forces your opponent to accept they are going to be in combat with the metamorphs on their own turn, and you will be fighting before them because neither of you is charged, and the person whose turn is not taking place goes first, or your opponent will have to overcommit with stratagems and force multiplying bonuses to wipe out 10 metamorphs with one of their units. It's a shame we can only surge move once per phase. If I haven't mentioned one of your favourite units to include all of the time, in this video I go through every unit we have in the Genestealer Cult Codex and their preferred detachment, so you can see where your favourite unit is going to work best. My darlings and viewers, have a great day of 40k.